Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am going to be creating some projects featuring these supplies from Altenew. I have the Build-A-Flower Chrysanthemum stamp and die set, and I have the Sincere Greetings stamp set. Now this is a part of their 4th anniversary celebration blog hop, so head on over to my blog to find more information about that as well as prizes. And you can see on the back of that layering stamp set there's a guide for how to layer these up. And I'm going to start doing my stamping of my chrysanthemum here. And I primed my stamp using a little bit of Versamark ink, and then I just wiped it off with my hand. And I'm starting with my first color of ink with my most solid image. Now, you've seen me do layering stamps quite a bit in the past, so I thought I would just talk to you about a couple of things that I find helpful when I'm doing layering stamps. And if you want a detailed video about how to kind of layer up your stamps, I'll link to a video here that I created just a few weeks back using another Sweet Rose Bouquet layering stamp set from Altenew, which is beautiful as well. They make the most beautiful layered floral images and they come out so realistic. But anyway, on to my tips here. The first thing I find most helpful is to use a stamp positioner, and I'm using the Mini Misty here. If I could only choose one stamp positioner, I think it would be the original Misty. I think it just has so much versatility with its size. It's not too big. I can do background stamps in it. I can do smaller stamps as well and sentiments. I'm using the Mini Misty today, but if I could only choose one, it would be the regular size Misty. And using a stamp positioner just helps me get really great aligning of the images when I'm doing these multiple layered stamps. Now, the second tip that I think is most helpful is to get your head in there. I get my head right over these stamps as I'm kind of layering them up. I tend to cut that out, but that helps me really find where this needs to go. And when I'm aligning those, I like to find landmarks, which is my third kind of tip for you today. I like to look for specific points on each of the stamps that are supposed to line up and really make sure that those are locked in and aligned well. I also really like creating multiples when I have these out because I'm using my positioning tool anyway, and it makes it fast and easy, and then I have a bunch on hand. And finally, I think it's really easy to use these layering stamps when you have coordinated inks. And I'm using a couple of different ink sets from Altenew, and I'll have those linked in the supply list below. But I think that if you don't have coordinating inks, say, I'm using 4 different colors of inks here, but if you don't have 4 of the same ink, you can use 2 different colors of inks and take one of those inks and double stamp it to make it a little bit darker. And I just find those are helpful ways to kind of really get the most out of your layering stamp sets. Now you can see I went through and I stamped a bunch and I die cut them using the most solid kind of pop-up layer first and then the outline layer. This die set has 2 different dies with it. One creates kind of these pop-ups within the stamp or the flower itself, and the other cuts the outline. Now, if I could go back, I would do it the way I just did it. And how I did that was I actually cut the detail first, and that helped me line up my stamps on those kind of pop-up details a little bit better. Then I went through and stamped it all on top of that die cut detail, and I finished it off by die cutting it using the outline die. And I really found that I got the best results when I did it that way. So you live and you learn. I didn't have that all figured out in the beginning, otherwise I would have done it. But as I went on, I got things figured out. And if you're going to do it, cut the detail layer first, then stamp, then cut your outline. I think that's the best way to do these. So now I'm moving on with these card projects, and I'm going to use these floral images, and I'm going to use a lot of the same things on each of these cards, but each is going to be a little bit unique. And I'm stamping these leaves here. These are from the Floral or the Fantasy Floral stamp set. It's another Altenew layered stamp set. I like these images for these leaves, but they don't have any details. So you can see I'm just kind of using a rock and roll technique to add a little bit of shading to the outside of these leaves. And then I'm going to take the largest of the Halftone circle stamps, and I'm going to stamp it using Mountain Mist ink, and that's going to kind of create a grounding place for my floral images. Now that first one, I didn't stamp it quite far enough over, so on the second one, I'm going to move it to that left side a little bit more so that you can see more of it when the flower is layered on top. Now I have 4 of these kind of laid out here, and I really felt like the leaves needed a little more detail. So I'm just taking a green colored pencil. It doesn't have to be exact. That's the great thing about shading with colored pencils. And I'm just adding a little line detail to the center of those leaves to kind of add a little bit more depth and dimension, kind of keep them from being so flat against this flower that has so much dimension and so much detail. When I adhere these flowers onto my card projects, I'm actually putting a double layer behind those pieces that the detail layer die cuts out. It has these little places that pop up. So I'm putting a double layer of foam adhesive behind those areas, and then a single layer of foam adhesive behind the other portions of the flower. Just kind of keeps those other areas really popped up and really adds to the detail that that second die creates. Now here you can see I'm taking this thank you greeting and I'm white heat embossing it onto some navy pattern paper here. And then I'm going to trim that down using my trimmer. And I have a couple of greetings here because I'm creating multiple cards. And I'm going to just tuck that into my flower using a little bit of foam adhesive. And you can see I added a little bit of gold glitter cardstock along the bottom as well. And then I'm taking this entire card front and I'm adhering it on to a top folding navy card base. And then I'll just finish this version off with a few sparkling clear sequins, and I'm adhering those on using some of the Ranger Mixed Media Matte Adhesive. So moving on to the second card, you can see I've actually just flipped the card base to where those leaves are in the upper left-hand corner. Kind of creates a different looking card without changing up a whole lot. I've stamped my thank you greeting in some industrial diamond ink from Altenew, and then I'm just adding a messy nest of gold thread behind that flower there. And you can see I just used a little foam adhesive to keep it in place and then use that foam adhesive to also adhere my flower. Now, I wasn't sure where I was going to go with that, and so I set it aside and I started working on some of my other card projects here. I really finished that last card off very simply, and I'm going to finish these other cards off very simply as well. I've die cut some vellum leaves here, and I just used the coordinating leaf die from the Fantasy Floral stamp set that I used to stamp those leaves. And I'm going to layer those up over the top of those stamped leaves that I have there just to give it a little bit different look. And you can see this one here, I turned horizontally to give it a little bit different look. All of these leaves are stamped in the same exact spot. I'm just rotating that card base to give it a little bit different look. For this final one, I've taken that entire card panel there, and I've used the Dotted Scales debossing folder to add a little bit of texture to that stamped panel. And then I'm going to add this heat embossed sentiment here using the tiny attacher, and I just heat embossed that on some vellum as well. Now, I have a friend, Julie Ebersole, who does this, and she's a master at it. I am still working on my skills here, but I'm going to finish this off using some Stickles gold glitter glue along the edge. I've taken that card panel and I've added it to a card base, and I'm just butting the nozzle of the Stickles glitter glue right up against that edge, kind of at a 45-degree angle, and then pulling it towards me as I squeeze. Now, I figured out that the key to this is to not be afraid. Just go for it and move kind of at a good pace, and you're going to get the best results. So here's a look at my finished projects for today, all featuring some products from Altenew celebrating their 4th anniversary. As I mentioned before, this video is a part of a blog hop celebrating their 4th anniversary. So head on over to my blog for more information about that, as well as information on a giveaway of a ton of prizes. So there you have it, 4 different cards featuring this beautiful Build-A-Flower Chrysanthemum stamp set from Altenew, as well as the Sincere Greetings stamp set, and a few tips and tricks for really getting the most out of your layered stamped images. I really hope you enjoyed those as well. As always, I will have links to the featured supplies in the description at YouTube, but head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Over there, I'll have more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies used in these projects. As always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed these projects. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of my paper crafting video tutorials. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, if you've stuck around this long, you know you're my favorite. If you want to subscribe to my channel, go ahead and hit that button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.